Did you know that something as simple as your HVAC media filter could be costing your Atlanta home money, comfort, and clean air? In today's deep dive, we're breaking down why these filters are so important, how to know when they need replacing, and how proper installation can keep your home efficient all year long.
Yeah, it's a huge topic for homeowners.
It really is. And, because actually modifying the lungs of your home requires some serious engineering, today's deep dive is brought to you by our sponsor, Hurricane Group.
Right.
They are just incredible. They have over 800 five-star reviews. They're a leading specialist in HVAC hygiene and property restoration.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you're looking for HVAC media filter installation or replacement in Atlanta, GA, they are the absolute go-to experts. You can reach them at 404-236-6343. So, diving into the sources today, our mission is to look, well, way beyond the surface level of basic home maintenance. Right?
Exactly. We are really going to examine the actual, the physics and the thermodynamics behind indoor air quality today.
Right.
We want to explore the specific environmental variables that cause those standard, hardware store filters to just fail completely in Georgia's humid climate.
Oh, they fail spectacularly.
They do. And we'll look at the mathematical differences a high-capacity media filter introduces to your airflow and the really strict fluid dynamics involved in installing them. Because if you do it wrong, you can actually destroy your heating and cooling equipment.
Which nobody wants. So let's start with the environmental reality of living in the Southeast, right? Because Atlanta is, it's basically an aggressive biome that is constantly trying to invade your living room.
That's a great way to put it.
You have this extreme seasonal pollen. We've all seen that thick neon yellow coating.
Oh, yeah, the pollen.
It turns every car into a bumblebee by April.
Yeah.
And you couple that with, heavy mold spores and a baseline humidity that feels like walking through warm soup for like 6 months out of the year.
Right, and that humidity is actually the crucial variable here.
Ah.
Well, in drier climates, dust and pollen might just settle relatively quickly. But high humidity, it physically alters how airborne particulates behave.
Wait, really? It changes how they behave?
Yeah, completely. The water vapor in the air acts as this suspension mechanism. It clings to microscopic particles, making them heavier, stickier, and it allows them to travel much deeper into your ductwork and, well, into your respiratory system.
Yikes. So it's not just floating, it's like weaponized.
Basically, yeah. It essentially turns a house into a circulatory system for allergens. And the frontline defense most homes rely on is just that standard 1-inch fiberglass or pleated filter.
Which, that feels entirely inadequate when you really visualize the threat.
It is.
Like facing down clouds of sticky, humid pollen and microscopic mold spores with this flimsy 1-inch piece of cardboard and mesh. It's like trying to use a chain link fence to keep mosquitoes out of your yard.
That is exactly what it's like.
Right. It's going to stop a stray baseball or maybe a bird, but the actual microscopic pests you were worried about are just flying straight through the gaps.
Yeah, and the history of those 1-inch filters really explains why they function that way. They were never engineered to protect the humans breathing the air inside the house.
Wait, they aren't for us.
Not at all.
Yeah.
They are a mechanical safeguard for the furnace itself. Their sole purpose in the schematic of an HVAC system is to prevent, catastrophic physical damage to the blower motor and the evaporator coils.
Okay, so they're just catching the big stuff.
Right, they catch the massive debris, the clump of pet hair, a stray leaf, the heavy dust bunny stuff that would literally physically jam the fan blades or blanket the internal coils.
So they're essentially just a bodyguard for the machinery.
Exactly.
Offering zero protection for the lungs of the people actually living there. They do, nothing for actual indoor air quality.
Nothing. The microscopic hazards, the bacteria, the fine particulate matter from, say, wildfire smoke, the mold spores.
Yeah.
They just sail right through that 1-inch mesh.
And get distributed through the ductwork.
Yep. And blown directly into the air you breathe. And when those particles combine with the ambient moisture in a typical Georgia home, the respiratory implications become, well, pretty significant.
Yeah, I can imagine. So the standard filter is basically a failing premise for human health.
Right.
Which brings us to the alternative, the high-capacity media filter. And just looking at the sources, the structural differences are immediate. We are moving from a 1-inch disposable square to a unit that is like 4 to 5 inches thick.
It's a massive upgrade.
The sheer scale of it is staggering. I mean, if you were to take a standard 1-inch pleated filter, cut the frame, and stretch that fabric out flat, you might get a few feet of material right.
Sure.
But if you unfold a 5-inch deep pleat media filter, it provides up to 40 times the filtering surface area. 40 times.
Yeah, and that massive increase in surface area fundamentally changes the fluid dynamics of how the system cleans the air.
Yep.
Well, when you have 40 times the space for air to pass through, you can utilize a significantly denser, tightly woven filtering material without just creating a barricade.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
And this density is measured by the MERV rating, the minimum efficiency reporting value.
Right, I've seen that on the packaging.
Yeah, so standard 1-inch filters, they hover around MERV 4 to MERV 8.
Ah.
High-capacity media filters operate in the MERV 11 to MERV 16 range.
Which is a huge jump. Let's contextualize what a MERV 16 rating actually captures, just so you guys listening have a picture of this. The benchmark used in the testing is a single micron.
Yep.
And a single strand of human hair is roughly 70 microns across.
Wow.
Right, so we are looking at a filtration density capable of trapping physical matter 70 times smaller than the width of a hair.
We are definitely crossing the threshold into medical-grade environments at that level.
Yeah.
A MERV 11 to 16 filter successfully traps 98% of airborne particulates down to that 1 micron mark.
That's incredible.
It is. You're no longer just capturing household dust. The filter is pulling airborne viruses, bacteria, and microscopic allergens completely out of circulation.
Right.
But the most advanced media filters, like specific models from Aprilaire or Honeywell, they actually go beyond physical trapping. They incorporate active chemical neutralization for volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, and persistent odors.
Okay, I want to understand the mechanism there, because a physical net, no matter how tight it is, can't catch gas, right?
Right.
And VOCs are these gases off-gassing from everyday things like cleaning sprays, fresh paint, or even the glue in new furniture. So how does a filter neutralize a gas?
It utilizes a process called absorption. That's with a D, not absorption with a B.
Absorption, got it?
Yeah, so these filters integrate layers of activated carbon. Activated carbon is treated with oxygen to open up millions of microscopic pores between the carbon atoms. It acts like a chemical sponge. When the gaseous VOC molecules pass through, they are physically attracted to the carbon and chemically bond to its surface. It uses something called van der Waals forces.
Wow, getting really scientific here.
Yeah. The gas molecules get trapped in those microscopic pores, which permanently removes the odor and the chemical from the air circulation.
Okay, but, and I have a major concern here. If we are putting a highly dense, chemically active, 5-inch thick sponge into the ductwork that catches 98% of particles down to a single micron.
I see where you go.
I mean, thinking about the sheer physics of pushing air through that, it sounds like strapping a thick, wet wool blanket over your mouth and then trying to run on a treadmill. Doesn't this massive barrier just completely suffocate the HVAC blower motor? The resistance has to be enormous.
That is such a good question.
Well, before you answer that and we get into the motor suffocating, let's take a quick second, because this exact problem is why you cannot just DIY this stuff and why Hurricane Group is sponsoring today's dive. You can't just buy a thick filter online and tape it to your furnace without risking catastrophic damage to your home. You need professionals who understand the physics of airflow, which is why Hurricane Group is the go-to for HVAC media filter installation or replacement in Atlanta, GA.
They really are the best at it.
Absolutely. You can call them right now at 404-236-6343. They hold IICRC certifications, which is the absolute gold standard in this industry. They handle the entire respiratory system of your house. We're talking comprehensive air duct cleaning to strip out years of accumulated dust, water damage emergency response, where they guarantee to reach a dry standard in under 72 hours.
That 72-hour mark is crucial for preventing mold, by the way.
So crucial. Plus, they do dryer vent cleaning and even crawl space encapsulation. They don't guess. They engineer solutions. And they have 800 5-star reviews to back it up. So give them a call at 404-236-6343.
Okay, returning to my treadmill analogy. What actually happens to the machinery when a homeowner tries to force air through an uncalibrated dense filter? Well, it's a disaster. That is the exact thermodynamic bottleneck that ruins systems across the country. The resistance is enormous if the system isn't engineered to handle it. You just cannot wedge a highly restrictive, dense filter into an airflow system that wasn't calibrated for that level of resistance.
So what breaks first?
The first casualty is the blower motor. It detects the resistance and begins working at maximum capacity just to pull the baseline amount of air required to condition the house.
Running a marathon through a wool blanket.
Exactly. The motor overheats, which drastically shortens its lifespan and drives your electrical bill straight through the roof.
Oh, man.
But the secondary failure is even more dramatic, and it involves the thermodynamics of your evaporator coils.
The evaporator coils being the part of the air conditioner inside the house that actually gets cold, right?
Yes, inside those coils is liquid refrigerant. When warm air from your house blows over those coils, the heat transfers to the refrigerant, causing it to boil into a gas and carry the heat away.
Right, standard AC stuff.
But if that dense filter is blocking the airflow, there isn't enough warm air moving over the coils. Without that heat transfer, the refrigerant never boils. It stays liquid, and its temperature drops well below freezing.
And because we already established that Georgia air is thick with humidity?
Oh, the moisture in the sluggish air hits that sub-freezing metal coil and immediately condenses into frost.
Just freezes right on contact.
Instantly. And within hours, that frost builds into a solid block of ice, completely encasing the evaporator coil.
Wow.
The system suffocates entirely, the compressor outside is subjected to massive liquid slugging, and you are left with a repair bill in the thousands.
Just from swapping a filter.
Just from a filter. This sequence of failures is why professionals mandate a really strict three-step installation protocol. It begins with static pressure testing.
Okay, static pressure testing. I think of that like taking the ductwork's blood pressure before prescribing a heavy medication.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right. They use a manometer to measure the resistance currently in the system. They have to verify that the blower motor has the static capacity to push air through MRV16 filter without starving those coils of the heat they need to function.
Exactly. And once the system is mathematically cleared to handle the density, the physical modifications begin. You cannot just fit a 5-inch filter into the standard 1-inch slot cut into most sheet metal returns.
Obviously not, yeah.
So the technicians actually have to reconstruct the ductwork. They fabricate and install a custom metal housing cabinet engineered specifically to hold the dimensions of an Aprilaire or Honeywell deep pleat filter.
And the most critical part of that custom housing installation involves the fluid dynamics of how air actually behaves, right? Because the sources highlight a major pitfall called bypass air.
Though bypass air is the enemy of a good HVAC system.
Because air is incredibly lazy. It will always take the path of absolute least resistance.
Fluid dynamics dictate that air will not push through a dense, highly restrictive medium if there is an alternative route. If the custom housing cabinet isn't perfectly sealed if there is even a millimeter of a gap between the filter frame and the sheet metal.
The air just shoots right through the gap.
Exactly. The air will accelerate through that tiny crack.
So the heavy, expensive filter just sits there, completely pristine, while all the pollen-filled, dusty air squeezes through the unsealed gaps.
Yeah, completely bypassing the filtration material and blowing directly back into your living room. You've essentially spent hundreds of dollars to create a decorative bottleneck.
A decorative bottleneck. That is painful.
It happens all the time with DIY jobs. This is why the third step, the seal and calibrate process, is non-negotiable. Professionals use specialized mastic sealant or heavy-duty HVAC foil tape to ensure the cabinet is 100% airtight.
So the air has no choice.
Right. The air must be forced, with no alternative escape routes, to travel through the 40 square feet of deep-pleated media. The blower motor, the ductwork geometry, and the airtight seal must operate in absolute harmony to successfully clean the air without freezing the coils.
Okay, so understanding the sheer engineering required to get this right really leads directly into the financial realities for the homeowner.
Oh, for sure.
We need to look at the return on investment and the maintenance timeline. If we have this perfectly sealed, mathematically calibrated vault attached to the furnace, how do you know when it's actually full and failing? Because replacing a highly engineered 5-inch filter isn't the cheap monthly habit you're used to with those 1-inch flimsy things.
No, it's not. But the signs of failure are pretty clear. You'll see shifts in the home's baseline environment. A noticeable reduction in airflow coming from the supply vents is usually the first mechanical symptom.
Like it's just not blowing as hard.
Exactly. And if the system's running constantly but the house isn't cooling down, or your energy bills spike unexpectedly without a change in weather or thermostat settings, the filter is likely fully loaded and restricting flow.
Are there visual cues?
Yeah. You might also notice a sudden accumulation of visible dirt or dust around the registers, or lingering indoor odors like cooking smells or pet odors that the carbon absorption layer is no longer able to neutralize.
Okay, so what is the actual timeline for swapping these out? Because it's a massive departure from the norm. With standard 1-inch filters, Homeowners are accustomed to that nagging 30-day replacement cycle.
Right.
But because the media filter utilizes 40 times the surface area, the loading capacity has to be exponential, right?
It is. In a standard residential environment, a media filter will last 6 to 12 months.
6 to 12 months, that's amazing.
Yeah. The variables that push you toward the 6-month replacement cycle include having multiple shedding pets, heavy allergy sufferers in the home, or simply the intensity of the Georgia pollen season.
Which is brutal.
It is. But even at the more frequent end of that spectrum, you're scheduling maintenance twice a year instead of every 30 days.
Which is so much better. And let's talk about the hard numbers regarding the lifespan of the HVAC equipment itself. The sources indicate that protecting the internal machinery with a high-capacity media filter can add 5 to 7 years to the overall lifespan of the HVAC unit.
5 to 7 years is huge. And that longevity comes directly from preserving the heat transfer efficiency we discussed earlier.
Right, keeping the coils clean.
Exactly. When dust and biological growth coat the evaporator coils, it acts as an insulator. The system has to run significantly longer cycles to achieve the same temperature drop.
Because it's just working harder.
Working much harder. That prolonged runtime degrades the compressor, wears out the capacitors, and grinds down the blower motor bearings. By stopping 98% of particulates before they ever reach the coils, the system maintains its day-one thermodynamic efficiency for years.
And adding 5 to 7 years to an HVAC system in Atlanta translates to massive financial savings. Replacing an entire system easily runs into the many thousands of dollars.
Oh, easily.
So paying a professional $150 to $250 once or twice a year for a media filter replacement, depending on the MRV rating and the specific cabinet size, is an incredibly small micro-investment to protect the most expensive appliance in your home. It's like spending a little more on a high-quality pair of boots that last you for years, rather than buying cheap, flimsy shoes every 30 days that end up hurting your feet anyway.
That's a really great way to look at it. It represents a fundamental shift in how homeowners approach property maintenance. You are moving away from a reactive model like waiting for a motor to burn out or a coil to freeze solid before calling for emergency service and embracing proactive, preventative home health.
Right.
You are establishing control over the indoor environment rather than just being at the mercy of the outside air.
And seasonal maintenance, professional checks, and just regular DIY inspections of your airflow keep your HVAC efficient in Atlanta's unforgiving climate. Regular media filter care ensures energy savings, improved comfort, and cleaner indoor air for your home and family.
Absolutely.
So if your home is still relying on a flimsy 1-inch piece of cardboard to fight off the Atlanta pollen and humidity, you are leaving your health and your wallet completely exposed.
The mechanics of filtration are undeniable. The thermodynamics are precise, but the implementation requires an engineered approach to avoid destroying the very system you're trying to protect.
Which is exactly why you need to protect. Call the sponsor now, Hurricane Group phone 404-236-6343. Have their professionals conduct the static pressure tests, fabricate the custom sheet metal housing, and ensure your system is breathing optimally. Stop letting your HVAC system suffocate. Again, call them at 404-236-6343. But wait, before you go, there is one final lingering detail from the sources regarding whole home health that is really worth mulling over.
Yeah, this is a fascinating point. Throughout this entire discussion, we have focused exclusively on the air being pulled through the return vents in your living spaces.
Right, the normal AC stuff.
But the physics of a house dictate that up to 50% of the air you breathe on the first floor actually rises directly from the foundation below you.
Wait, really? Half the air?
Up to half, yeah. It's due to a phenomenon known as the stack effect. As warm air rises and escapes through the roof, it creates a negative pressure vacuum at the base of the house, pulling air up through the floorboards.
Oh, wow.
So if your home is a breathing organism and you've just spent the time and money to upgrade its lungs with a meticulously sealed, medical-grade media filter, what exactly is lurking down in your unsealed crawl space being pulled up into your living room?
That is genuinely unsettling. I mean, if a cheap filter is costing you money and clean air, the humidity and mold festering beneath your floorboards is a whole different level of threat. But I guess that is a deep dive for another day. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.